Claude Opus 5 costs exactly half what Fable 5 does, and the vendor claims it matches Fable 5 on coding benchmarks. Half the price, same power. And that's what's sitting on the table right now. Both models just dropped. And if you're paying for API access right now, which one you pick could double your costs overnight. So I'm comparing Claude Opus 5 versus Fable 5 across 5 real tests, pulling from verified sources only, no vendor spin. And honestly, the part that surprised me most is what happens when you look at the coding benchmarks side by side and realize the data is way more incomplete than either vendor wants you to know. All right, so this one's for you if you're running Claude through an API at any real volume, because the pricing gap between these two is $5 per million input tokens, and that stacks up fast. So if you're doing batch processing or long document work, picking the wrong one could cost you real money every single month. Test one is context window and long document handling. And when this goes wrong, it goes wrong in the worst way. You feed a model your entire code base or a 600-page legal document, and somewhere past the 800,000 token mark, it just starts making things up, hallucinating context that was right there in the file. Both models officially claim 1 million token context windows, same number on paper, but Fable 5 has community reported context rot kicking in around 800,000 tokens, while Opus 5 has no published figure for practical degradation at all. Now take that with a grain of salt. The 800K figure for Fable 5 is community reported, not independently verified. And Opus 5 not having a degradation number doesn't mean it doesn't degrade. It might just mean nobody's published the test yet. So the gap here is honestly smaller than it looks on screen. I was expecting one of these to pull ahead on context, but the honest answer is we can't call it. Both claim 1 million tokens and the practical data is too thin to split them. So this one's a tie, which puts us at 0 wins each. One test tied so far. Okay, so test 2 is reasoning and complex problem solving. And when a model fails here, you don't always know right away. It gives you a confident sounding answer that's just wrong, and you only catch it after you've shipped the code or sent the report, which is the expensive kind of failure. What I found here is genuinely messy. Opus 5 claims 43.3% on Frontier Bench, which is more than double its previous version. But that's a vendor claim with no independent verification. And Fable 5 hits 80.3% on SWE Bench Pro, according to community reports, but Opus 5 hasn't been tested on that benchmark at all. And this is where I want to be really honest with you guys. Opus 5 has numbers on benchmarks Fable 5 wasn't tested on, and Fable 5 has numbers on benchmarks Opus 5 skipped. So it's kind of like comparing two runners where one ran 100 meters and the other ran a mile. I was expecting Fable 5 to clearly win this one given its coding reputation, but no head-to-head test exists under matched conditions, so the data just doesn't let me call it either way. Another tie, which means we're still at 0, wins for either model with 2 tests tied now. Now, test 3 is API pricing and cost efficiency. And this one is super concrete. If you're running a production app and you pick the wrong model, you could be burning an extra $5 per million input tokens on every single call. And at scale, that's a real budget line, not a rounding error. So I pulled the official pricing pages, and the numbers are really clear. Opus 5 is $5 input and $25 output per million tokens. Fable 5 is $10 input and $50 output. Exactly double across the board. And Opus 5 also has a batch API at $2.50 per million input tokens that Fable 5 doesn't have at all. Honestly, I was expecting some kind of catch like hidden tiers or lower rate limits, but there isn't. 1, Opus 5 just costs half as much. So clear win for Claude Opus 5, putting us at 1 win for Opus 5, 0 for Fable 5, 2 tied. Test 4 is response latency and real-time performance. And when latency is bad, your users notice immediately. A 109-second wait for a first token in a chat interface is a deal breaker. So which model actually gets you output fast enough to use in a real product? What surprised me when I dug into this is that the numbers exist, but they're basically useless for comparison. Opus 5 at low effort hits 52 to 54 tokens per second, with the first token in about 2.8 to 3.7 seconds, while Fable 5 at max effort hits 63.4 tokens per second, but takes 109 seconds to start. The hard truth is you can't compare these numbers at all. Opus 5's figures are from low effort mode, and Fable 5's are from max effort mode. So those are completely different settings, doing completely different amounts of work. Kind of like saying a car going 30 miles per hour in first gear is slower than one doing 80 in fifth. I was expecting at least one clean latency number I could point to, but the effort settings make this impossible to call. So tie again. Right now we're sitting at 1 win for Opus 5, 0 wins for Fable 5, and 3 tests tied. As Fast 5 is creative writing quality. And this one matters because if you're using either model for content, copy, or storytelling at scale, picking the wrong one means your output sounds flat or generic. and you only figure that out after you've already paid for thousands of generations. So I looked for any published data on creative writing quality for either of these models, and honestly, I came up empty. No benchmarks, no community tests, no side-by-side outputs with matched prompts, nothing, which is a real gap in what's publicly available right now. I was expecting at least some community comparisons on creative output, but there's genuinely nothing to score here. Tie again, and I want to be clear that's a data problem, not a sign they're equal. Final tally: 1 win for Claude Opus 5, 0 for Fable 5, 4 tests tied. Claude Opus 5 wins on price. Full stop. It's $5 input and $25 output per million tokens, exactly half of Fable 5. And it also has a batch API at $2.50 per million input tokens that Fable 5 doesn't offer at all. Plus, its 1 million token context window has no reported practical degradation. Fable 5 has the stronger coding track record right now. It scores 80.3% on S2B Bench Pro, according to community reports. And it's been used in real complex repo migrations like the Stripe case. So if you need a model that's been literally hammered on hard coding tasks, Fable 5 has way more evidence behind it. Honestly, I was expecting a cleaner fight, but most of this comparison is unanswered questions. So here's a decision rule. If cost is your constraint and you're running high volume API calls, go with Claude Opus 5 half the price and there's no catch. If you need proven coding power on complex repos and you can absorb the premium, Fable 5 is the safer bet right now.